So this is the first week of the Bruce Lee Challenge, Bruce Lee Podcast Challenge. If you don't know what that is, go a couple of videos back. I explained the Bruce Lee Podcast Challenge, and essentially it's a daily practice that we do for 2-3 weeks, and you go through 3 phases, or 3 steps. First step is Affirmations, where you read out, vocalize these affirmations that kind of remind you of your practice for the day. I'll give you an example for mine. Today is my day. Tomorrow is someone else's. I'll make the most out of every minute to the fullest of my capabilities. This one's to address my tendency to procrastinate. There's always something exciting going on tomorrow or the next day, and I'm like, you know what? Today's the only real day that I get. I want to focus on that. And so I wrote that affirmation. That's number 1 for me, that I go back to whenever, this is my notebook. I go back to my notebook when I'm feeling like, man, I can't wait for this hour to be over. I'm like, no, this is the only hour I ever get. The next one might never come. So I gotta really appreciate living in that moment. So that's what that's about. Second is a nutritional and fitness component. And for me, that's been stretching. Even when I was training martial arts, I hated stretching. That was the one thing that always held me back. So I'm making a point to stretch as soon as I wake up and before I go to bed every day. And then throughout the day, I'll always remind myself, okay, now I'm going to stretch. Because I reminded myself to stretch. And thirdly, and possibly the hardest one, is it's called harmony. And this is possibly the hardest one for a lot of people. It's just letting people be. And that includes yourself. So not saying anything negative about anyone, not saying or thinking anything negative about yourself. And we do that a lot. So it's actually quite difficult. So the whole Bruce Lee Podcast Challenge is to just go through these things for 2-3 weeks and just see how it goes. If you guys haven't heard about it yet, there is like a time period that we're all doing it as a group, but honestly, you can do this whenever you want. And I highly recommend it because it's just a really cool way to kind of shift your perspective a little bit. So check it out. I'll go back a couple of videos. There's info there. If you Google it, I'm sure it'll take you to an info sheet. Anyways, this week on the Asian American podcast, no, not Asian American podcast. This week on the Asian American Spotlight, I'd like to highlight Daniel Wu. Now, Daniel Wu and I have gone through a very similar path. I watched his career growing up, and I kind of did a lot of what he did. He's done it way better. But he grew up in Berkeley, California, went to university in Oregon. He trained and studied wushu, which is the martial art that I did. He ended up going to Hong Kong, worked in a bunch of movies there where he had to learn Chinese for it. And now he's worked his way all the way back to North America again. And he's the star of a kind of new show called Into the Badlands, which airs on AMC. So they just got renewed for season 3. They have seasons 1 and 2 out already. So if you haven't seen it and you like action and drama, this is possibly a really cool show for you. I like it because he's the lead in this show. He just happens to be Asian American. They don't really make a big deal out of it. He's just a person who happens to be Asian as the lead of this show. And as I think any minority actor or actress would just kind of wants that opportunity to be a person, and like, oh my God, you're different. Like, they don't have to make a big deal out of it. Everyone's different. And that's kind of a cool thing that they practice the harmony of just letting these characters be. So a little bit about the show. It happens after 500 years after a war destroys civilization. So it's set in an area in the United States they call the Badlands, and you have all these barons fighting for commodities and trades and stuff. And they all have like an army of these things called clippers. And Daniel Wu plays the head clipper of his baron, who happens to be like the strongest in all the lands, and they all fight for control. So action-packed. If that sounds like your kind of show, please check it out. It's called Into the Badlands on AMC. Season 3 is coming out next year, so catch up until then. And yeah, that's the Asian American Spotlight for this week. Quick update on my life. I'm shooting Dirk Gently every single day this week. It's been a little bit crazy. I've been spending all my times in the woods. I saw wild horses. I didn't know those existed not in Vancouver, but way out there, which that was pretty cool. And it's just a little fun to work with friends in the middle of the woods. I'm hanging out in the cage all day. Got a pompadour. It's a lot of fun. I still have this cold. I don't know what it is, but the worst of it's over, but I still get like coughing fits every now and again. So that's a little crazy. So hopefully it goes away. Anyways, I'll see y'all next week, hopefully with a clear nasal cavity and no coughing fits.